We're married now, Mom. Send over the keys to the villa in Laguna. My son's voice cut through me like a shard of glass dipped in ice. No greeting. No warmth. No explanation for why I hadn't even known he was getting married. Just a blunt demand, delivered with the kind of expectation only someone who's never heard the word no can muster. I stood in my kitchen, phone pressed to my ear, eyes drifting to the wide stretch of ocean beyond my window, the same horizon that had witnessed every high and low of my life for nearly 4 decades. The same waves that carried my father's ashes, my husband's ashes, and one day, mine. Evan, I managed, my voice steadier than the storm in my chest. You got married? Yeah. Last weekend. Listen, Lila's always dreamed of spending our honeymoon at the Laguna place. We're hoping to head there tomorrow, for a month, maybe longer. Lila. A name I had never once heard until this very moment. My new daughter-in-law, apparently, though I wouldn't have known her if she'd passed me on the street. No voice, no face, no introduction. Yet she wanted my home. And not just any home. The oceanfront retreat my father, Samuel Drake, had purchased with the profits from his award-winning novels. The home where actors, directors, and literary icons once gathered for long, laughter-filled evenings. The place where my children built sandcastles and where, 5 years ago, I held my husband's hand as he slipped away for the last time. I didn't know you were seeing someone seriously, I said carefully. I would have loved to be at your wedding. It was just small, spontaneous. You wouldn't have liked it anyway. His words were casual, dismissive. So, the keys? Can you have someone bring them over today? A memory flashed in my mind, Evan at 7 years old, standing in this very kitchen, insisting he get the last piece of chocolate cake I'd saved for his sister. When I told him to share, he'd thrown it on the floor, leaving no one with dessert. Some habits form early. Evan, I haven't even met Lila. Why don't you both come for dinner first? We could celebrate properly. There's no time. She's got auditions next month. This is our chance for a honeymoon. His impatience crackled through the line. It's just a house. You can stay at your condo in the city. Just a house. As though the walls that had absorbed decades of joy, grief, and whispered dreams were nothing more than bricks and paint. Your sister's bringing her girls next week, I reminded him, referring to me as teenage daughters who had spent every July with me since they could walk. They can skip a year. Or stay at a hotel. Mia's got that cushy university paycheck. I closed my eyes. Once again, I was being pushed into my familiar role, the peacemaker, the one who bends, who smooths over the ripples Evan creates without thought. It was a role I had played since my husband died, maybe even before. But today felt different. Maybe it was the audacity of the request. Maybe it was the complete absence of family regard. Or maybe, at 68, I'd finally had enough. Who is she, Evan? I asked quietly. What? Lila. Your wife. The woman you've known long enough to marry, but not long enough to introduce to your own family. She's an actress. Insanely talented. You'll meet her eventually. Now, about those keys. How long have you known her? He sighed sharply. Does it matter? We're in love. It's real. Can we move on? It matters to me, I said, my voice taking on a firmness I hadn't used with him since his teenage years. I'm trying to understand why my son would marry without telling his family, then demand access to a home that means so much to all of us. God, Mom, you're making this complicated. We just wanted privacy for our wedding, and a nice place for our honeymoon. What's the big deal? The problem with raising children in comfort is that entitlement seeps in quietly, like ivy, until it chokes the foundation. I need time to think, Evan. There's nothing to think about. It's the family beach house. I'm family. I need it for a month. Simple. Not simple, I thought. Not the surprise marriage. Not the timing. Not the gnawing sense in my gut that this wasn't about love at all. Let me think, I said aloud. I'll be in touch. Mom, we need an answer now. Lila's already packing. I said I'll be in touch. My tone left no room for debate. Congratulations on your marriage. I look forward to meeting Lila. Before he could argue, I ended the call and set my phone down gently. I stayed there, staring at the restless water outside. They wanted my home, the heart of our family, without so much as an introduction. I picked up my phone again, scrolling to a name I hadn't called in years, Thomas Ellery, private investigator. The man who had quietly handled delicate situations for my late husband. Thomas, I said when he answered. It's Helena Drake. I need your help, discreetly and fast. After I laid out the situation, I made another call to my attorney, Elaine Park. Elaine, I need to make urgent changes to my estate plan. How soon can we get this done? As I spoke, the beginnings of a plan took shape. Evan and his mysterious bride would get something far more valuable than a set of keys. They'd get the truth. 3 days later, I personally delivered a beautifully wrapped box to Evan's downtown loft, leaving it with his doorman and stressing it was a wedding gift that required immediate attention. Inside wasn't the key to the Laguna Villa, but something that would make Lila scream for all the wrong reasons. Hollywood had taught me something: the best plot twists are the ones no one sees coming. Thomas didn't waste time. Within hours, he had a preliminary report on Lila Ray, born Emily Carter in a small Bakersfield suburb. Ordinary parents, modest upbringing. At 22, she'd legally changed her name, refined her accent, and built a fabricated background, common in the entertainment industry, but hers was unusually thorough. Her acting resume? Slim. A handful of commercials, some extra work, and one speaking part in an indie film that never released. Thomas slid a folder toward me. Inside, photos, dates, and names, a timeline of her relationships over the past 5 years. Director Henry Westbrook, 30 years older, who gave her a minor role in his period drama until their engagement collapsed after filming. Producer Mark Lynn, whose streaming series mysteriously cast her over seasoned actresses until the show was cancelled and the romance cooled. The pattern was unmistakable: powerful older men, a short burst of career momentum for her, then a swift, calculated exit once she'd gotten what she wanted. And Evan? I asked, scanning a recent photo of the two of them at some gala, his arm around her waist, her smile as deliberate as it was dazzling. They met 4 months ago at a fundraiser for the Film Archive Foundation, Thomas said carefully. An event held at your Laguna Villa last March, the one you skipped to be with your sister during her surgery. The words hit me like a gut punch. She'd been in my home before she'd even met Evan. She was there to network, Thomas continued. Several people remember her asking pointed questions about the villa, who owned it, its history, its worth. So, the house was the prize all along, I murmured. And Evan? Just the access point. In certain circles, Thomas added tactfully, your son has a reputation for being susceptible to ambitious, beautiful women. A polite way of saying my son had a long-standing weakness: women who spotted the cracks in his confidence and slipped right through them. His father and I had tried to warn him in his 20s, only to be brushed off as meddling and out of touch. There's more, Thomas continued, turning to the last section of his report. Ms. Ray has been meeting with developers who specialize in transforming prime residential properties into luxury boutique hotels. A cold knot formed in my stomach as I examined surveillance photos of Lila, seated with men in tailored suits, blueprints spread across restaurant tables. Her gestures were animated, her smile deliberate. The most recent meeting was 3 weeks ago, Thomas noted. Right before the wedding. The man on the left is Howard Kingsley of Ocean View Properties. Their focus? Acquiring beachfront homes for conversion into high-end resorts. The last puzzle piece fell neatly into place. It wasn't just my house she wanted, it was what it could become. A historic estate with a literary pedigree, perched on one of Laguna's most coveted strips of coastline, would be worth tens of millions once repurposed into an exclusive retreat. Have you monitored her communications with these developers? I asked. Not directly, he said, shaking his head. That would mean accessing her personal devices, legally risky. But, he pushed another folder toward me. We did capture several public conversations between Ms. Ray and a friend, Vanessa Diaz. You'll want to see these transcripts. I flipped through pages of printed dialogue, each line confirming my worst fears. Evan's perfect for this. He's hungry for attention, blind to manipulation, and a direct line to that stunning property. His mom's almost 70, how long can she hang on to a place like that? Once you're married, it's just a matter of convincing him to sell. The developers are offering a 7-figure consulting fee for bringing them the house. Imagine what we could do with that. The most damning exchange was from just days before the wedding. Vanessa, what if his mother refuses to let you use the house? Lila, she won't. Evan says she never denies him anything. We just need to get inside. Once we're there, I'll start planting the idea of selling. The old lady won't be around forever, and when she's gone, Evan gets his share. The old lady. Me, reduced to nothing more than an obstacle in her blueprint for wealth. What about Evan? I asked, my voice tight. Any sign he knows what she's doing? Nothing, Thomas said, his expression softening. Everything points to him believing this is real love. My poor, misguided son. On the outside, he had it all: Grammy nominations, famous clients, a life of glitter and spotlight. But underneath, the same insecure boy who needed constant validation from all the wrong people. Thank you, Thomas, I said, gathering the folders. What's next? He asked. I felt a calm clarity as my plan solidified. First, I speak with my attorney to lock certain matters in place. Then, I prepare a wedding gift Lila Ray will never forget. The drive back along the Pacific Coast Highway brought an unexpected peace. I had raised my children to value love, family, and integrity, the same ideals Samuel Drake instilled in me. Evan had drifted into the shallow glitter of the industry that made us wealthy, but I was still Helena Drake, daughter of Samuel Drake. I had hosted literary giants on my terrace, lost everything once, and built it back. I wasn't about to lose my family's sanctuary to an ambitious actress with a carefully crafted past and a vision board for my house. I could almost hear my father's voice as I pulled into the driveway. Every great story needs a third-act twist, Helena. Make it count. And I intended to. Elaine Park's office always reminded me of a movie set, every detail intentional, every angle flattering. Today, the conference room felt like the perfect stage for the scene we were about to write. You're certain? Elaine asked, sliding the documents across the table. At 53, she had been my legal counsel for over 2 decades, since the day she impressed my late husband with her razor-sharp mind and fearless honesty. Absolutely, I replied, signing where she indicated. The house was always meant for my grandchildren. Now, it's official. Evan won't take this well, she cautioned. I paused with the pen above the final signature. Then he'll have to learn actions have consequences. This isn't punishment, it's protection. She reminded me that the trust was irrevocable. I signed with a flourish. Some decisions are made only once. From there, I drove to my city apartment, a sleek high-rise Evan had always preferred over the Laguna house. It's more my vibe, he'd once said, as if history and meaning were nothing more than decor choices. I'd arranged to meet Mia there, away from the curious whispers in Laguna. She arrived on the dot, as she always did, a habit she inherited from her father. At 44, with her academic career thriving and her daughters growing into strong young women, she had become my confidant in a way Evan never had. Mom, she said, hugging me warmly. Your message sounded urgent. Your brother got married, I said without preamble. Her eyebrows rose. To who? Exactly my question, I replied, pouring her a glass of the Sauvignon Blanc she liked. An actress named Lila Ray. Someone he's never once mentioned to us. That's unexpected, she said slowly. Evan's impulsive, but marriage? Without telling anyone? It gets worse, I said, taking my seat. He called to announce it, then immediately asked for the keys to the Laguna house, for a month or more, during the very weeks you and the girls were planning to be there. That's completely unacceptable, she said sharply. Which is why I had her investigated. Mia blinked. You hired a PI? Something felt wrong. And I was right. I laid out Thomas's findings, the name change, the calculated relationships, the meetings with developers, the recorded conversations. Mia's shock shifted into hard resolve. She's a con artist. And Evan's her mark. Yes. Have you told him? No. He'd never believe me. He'd say I'm interfering. So what's your plan? She asked, leaning forward. I've restructured the trust. Effective immediately, the Laguna property bypasses you and Evan entirely, transferring directly to your daughters after I'm gone, with you as trustee until they're 30. That's significant, she said quietly. Evan will be furious. If he's capable of growth, he'll understand one day, I replied. There's more. Tomorrow, I'm delivering a wedding gift, a full dossier on Lila Ray, along with the trust documents. Mia studied me for a long moment. You know this could end their marriage. That's the goal, I said without hesitation. I'd rather risk my relationship with him than let her bleed him dry. She exhaled slowly. The girls and I will back you up. Just remember, no matter how frustrating he is now, he's still the boy who fell asleep on your lap during movie nights. The image flashed in my mind, Evan at 6, curled against me, whispering questions about his grandfather's films. When had that sweet boy become the man who'd lock his family out of his life, then demand our most precious home? The next morning, I put the final touches on my gift. The wrapping was exquisite, thick cream paper, tied with a silk ribbon. Inside the main box was a smaller one, an antique film canister that once held the original print of my father's most beloved novel adaptation. Inside the canister, arranged with precision, the newly executed trust documents, naming my granddaughters as future owners of the Laguna property, with an ironclad clause banning its sale or commercial development. The dossier on Lila Ray, her false history, her relationship pattern, her meetings with developers, the transcripts of her damning conversations, the timeline proving she targeted our home before she ever met Evan. A personal letter, written in my own hand, on the monogrammed stationery my husband had given me on our last anniversary. It wasn't a letter dripping with anger or accusation, something far sharper than that. It was the truth. The truth about what legacy means. About family. About the difference between mere property and the heritage you safeguard for the generations who come after you. As I sealed the package, my thoughts flickered to what waited on the other side of this choice, Evan's inevitable outrage, Lila's fury when her mask slipped, and the possibility that what was left of our family unity might fracture completely. But I also thought of what I was defending. Not just a piece of prime real estate, but the soul of the Drake family. The home where my father had penned words that touched millions. Where my children learned to swim in the salt water and to dream far beyond the horizon. Where, one day, my granddaughters would bring their own children to hear stories of their remarkable great-grandfather. Some things were worth enduring temporary storms. Some things demanded you stand your ground, even when it meant war. I called my most trusted driver, handed him the box with strict instructions, then returned to my terrace to wait. By tonight, Evan and his new wife would know exactly who they were dealing with, not a soft, pliable matriarch who could be swayed with flattery, but a woman prepared to guard what mattered most. The sea below was wild that day, waves pounding the shore as if echoing my resolve. I sipped my tea, watching the restless water, and steadied myself for the confrontation I knew was coming. Let it come. I had survived worse. The phone rang at precisely 7:43 p.m. I know because I was watching the antique grandfather clock tick away the moments, each swing of the pendulum a reminder to keep my breathing slow. Hello, Evan, I answered after 2 rings, my tone measured. What came back wasn't a greeting but chaos, Lila's shrill voice in the background, something heavy crashing, Evan shouting over the noise. What the hell did you do? He demanded when his words finally cut through. I sent a wedding gift, I said evenly. I take it you've opened it. Are you out of your mind? Lila is. Another crash cut him off, followed by more shouting. She's having trouble keeping her composure, I see, I remarked. Perhaps that's what happens when the truth catches up. These accusations are completely false, he barked, but the uncertainty in his tone told me he'd already read enough to feel the sting. You think I made this up? I asked quietly. Every page in that file is backed by documentation, photographs, transcripts, dates. Lila has been plotting to get that Laguna property since before she ever met you. From the background, I heard her yell clearly, that bitter old witch can't prove a thing. Actually, I murmured, knowing she might hear, I can. Evan's voice dropped. You changed the trust. You cut me out completely. I secured the house, I corrected, my tone still calm. It will pass to your nieces, with Mia as trustee, to the girls who've spent every summer there, who love it as much as I do. You had no right. I had every right. The house is mine, Evan. Not yours. And now, it never will be. There was a pause, a door slamming in the background. She's locked herself in the bathroom, he said hollowly. She's calling her lawyer. Says we can fight this. She's welcome to try, I replied, letting a thread of steel enter my voice. But I think you'll find I've been thorough. Silence stretched between us, the heavy kind that carried years of history, of my countless concessions, of smoothing his mistakes instead of confronting them. Did you already suspect her? He asked finally, his voice smaller now, like the boy who once begged me to check for monsters under his bed. I suspected something, I said. The secrecy. The timing. The sudden demand for the house. It fit a pattern I've seen before. In my relationships, he muttered bitterly. In the way you've been open to a certain kind of manipulation, I corrected gently. There's a difference. Another crash, then suddenly Lila's voice on the line. You think you're clever? You and your precious house and your ridiculous legacy. You're just a selfish old woman who can't stand your son's happiness. I didn't rise to it. When Evan came back on, I cut in before he could speak. Read the entire dossier, Evan. Look at the evidence with clear eyes. Then decide if this marriage is what you really want. And if I choose her anyway, he challenged. That's your choice. But it won't change mine about the house. I softened my voice just enough. You're always welcome here as my son, but never as someone's pawn. When we hung up, I poured a glass of the single malt Samuel had loved and carried it to the terrace. The sun was bleeding gold and crimson into the Pacific, and I thought about how many sunsets I'd witnessed here. Thousands. Each one proof that endings could still be beautiful, even with an ache in them. A text from Mia lit my phone. Evan's frantic. Says you've destroyed his life. What happened? The wedding gift was delivered, I typed back. It's going as expected. I'll tell you tomorrow. Her reply came almost instantly. We're coming early. The girls and I will be there tomorrow. You shouldn't be alone for the fallout. My throat tightened. Mia, steady, loyal, so much like her father in the ways that counted. Thank you, I replied simply. I was halfway through my scotch when the security system pinged, a red convertible roaring up the drive, braking hard in front of the house. Lila got out alone, her movements sharp and furious, her face twisted into something that would never book her another role. She strode to the door and began pounding. Maria, my housekeeper, followed my instructions to the letter. Mrs. Drake isn't accepting visitors tonight, she said through the intercom. I'm not a visitor, I'm family, Lila snapped. Tell her to face me instead of hiding behind her staff and spies. You can make an appointment with her assistant tomorrow if you wish, Maria replied, cool as marble. Good evening, Ms. Carter. Using her original name was deliberate, a small, satisfying twist of the knife. Lila exploded, hurling words so vile even my decades in Hollywood couldn't keep me from raising an eyebrow. Maria shut the door. Lila kicked it several times, then stormed back to her car. But she didn't leave. She sat behind the wheel, engine running, eyes locked on the house like she could burn it down with sheer will. After a few minutes, she pulled out her phone and began typing furiously. My own phone buzzed. This isn't over. I'll get that house. One way or another. I didn't reply. I simply forwarded it to Thomas and Elaine, then blocked the number. Later, as I moved through my nighttime ritual, brushing my hair with my mother's silver-handled brush, smoothing on the face cream Samuel used to tease me about, I thought about the storm I'd unleashed. Evan would be angry for a long time. Lila would try to strike back, though her reach would be short against my foresight. There would be noise, legal threats, maybe even court filings. But the house was safe. The legacy intact. My granddaughter's inheritance beyond anyone's grasp. As I settled into bed, I remembered my father's favorite lesson about storytelling. The third act shows who your characters truly are, Helena, not in what they say, but in what they choose when the pressure is at its peak. Now, it was Evan's turn. Would he cling to pride and a marriage built on deceit? Or would he have the courage to face the truth and walk away? That choice belonged to him. Mine was already made. Sleep found me easily, the deep, dreamless kind that comes when you've done what needed to be done, no matter the fallout. By morning, Mia arrived with my granddaughters, the three of them sweeping into the house with the kind of energy that makes the walls feel alive again. 16-year-old Claire, sharp-eyed and thoughtful like her mother at that age, hugged me tightly before retreating to the deck with her summer reading. 14-year-old Zoe, all motion and sunlight, made a beeline for the beach steps, surfboard under one arm. The ocean calls, she said, flashing the easy Drake grin. Miss these waves all year, Grandma. When the girls were occupied, Mia turned to me, her gaze as penetrating as her father's had been. You look awfully composed for someone who just dropped a bomb on the family, she said. Bit dramatic, I replied, leading her toward the kitchen. Connor called me 4 times last night, she continued. By the last one, he was threatening to contest the trust, sue you for defamation, and, his exact words, expose decades of family secrets. I arched a brow while measuring out coffee grounds. Interesting threat from a man who barely remembers half the family gatherings. I wonder what secrets he thinks I've got. He's not thinking straight, Mia said, leaning against the counter. Apparently Lila spent the night bouncing between hysterics and plotting. Exhausting, I said flatly. Mom, she's threatening to go to the tabloids with stories about us. About Dad. About Grandpa. I paused, then resumed making the coffee with deliberate calm. She's welcome to try. Samuel Drake's life has been documented in 3 biographies and more articles than I can count. There's nothing left to dig up that hasn't already been turned over in nauseating detail. And your father, the most principled man I ever knew, would withstand any lies she could conjure. I filled the machine, then glanced at her. Besides, I have something Lila doesn't. What's that? Proof. Should she fabricate anything publicly, I'll release the entire dossier, including her own words about targeting Evan to get to this house. Mia accepted her mug. You've covered every angle, haven't you? I've had to, I said simply, joining her at the island. This isn't about a house. It's about safeguarding what your grandfather built, what your father protected, and what I've kept intact for this family, for your daughters. She studied me for a long moment. And Evan? Where does he fit in this legacy you're protecting? He's always been part of it, I admitted. Just not in the way he wants. He's chosen a path of instant gratification over lasting value. I can't change that for him. But I can make sure those choices don't jeopardize what matters. My phone rang before she could reply. Elaine Park's office. Helena, Elaine said without preamble. Lila Ray has retained Julius Hammond. Of course. A peacock of a lawyer known for representing celebrities in ugly divorces and squeezing quick settlements out of clients who fear bad press. Let me guess, I said. They'll drop the case for a lump sum and access to the house. $2 million, Elaine confirmed, and 6 months' use of the property each year. I actually laughed. She does aim high. What's your read? I asked. Their case is weak, she said crisply. Your evidence is substantial, properly obtained, and truth is an absolute defense in defamation claims. They're counting on you wanting to avoid headlines, a misread, in my opinion. They're right about one thing, I said, watching through the window as Claire flipped a page on the deck and Zoe caught a wave in the distance. I don't shy from public spectacle. I've lived my whole life in Hollywood. It doesn't scare me. So I'll inform them you're prepared to fight? Do that. And make it clear, if they push forward, we'll countersue for attempted fraud and send everything to the district attorney for review. After I hung up, Mia was still watching me, half admiring, half worried. You're dangerous when provoked, she said. Sometimes I forget there's a fighter under that polished hostess exterior. I smiled faintly. I learned early that bullies thrive on fear of confrontation. Remove the fear, they retreat. And if she doesn't retreat, we'll handle that too. Mia hesitated, then asked the question hovering between us. And Evan? I let out a slow breath. That's the unknown. He's always led with his emotions. Whether he'll wake up to the truth or dig in deeper, I can't say. As if summoned, my phone chimed. We need to talk. Alone. Today. I showed it to Mia. You'll meet with him? She asked. Of course, I said, typing a quick reply, dinner. 7 o'clock. Just us. Do you want me to take the girls out? No, I said. Let them stay. Being here, together, it's a reminder of what family actually means. As she went outside to join the girls, I walked the hall, pausing at the framed photographs lining the wall. Evan at 8, beaming as he held up a fish from the dock. At 12, sitting cross-legged beside his grandfather as Samuel explained a camera setup. At 18, awkward in his graduation robe. At 30, clutching his first Grammy, smile dazzling but eyes already chasing the next validation. Somewhere in those years, the bright-eyed boy who followed his grandfather like a shadow had faded into a man forever searching outside himself for worth. I rested a hand against the glass over the fishing photo. Oh, Evan, I whispered to the grinning child frozen in time. What happened to you? The question lingered in the quiet hallway as I turned toward the study, already bracing for the dinner that would decide more than either of us yet realized. I chose my outfit for Evan's visit with care, not the easy, understated elegance I usually wore at home, but a deliberate choice. The deep sapphire silk blouse Samuel had given me on our last anniversary. My mother's pearl earrings. The slim Cartier watch my father had handed me the day his first novel sold to the screen. It was a kind of armor, tangible pieces of love from people who had cherished me without conditions, each one a reminder of where I came from and what I was defending. At 6:58 p.m., the security monitor flashed Evan's car in the drive. He sat there for several moments, motionless, as though bracing himself. When he finally stepped out, his movements were stiff, his confidence dampened. I opened the door before he could press the bell. Evan, I greeted, my voice steady. Come in. He entered cautiously, eyes scanning the foyer like he expected a trap. Where is everyone? Mia took the girls to dinner in town. I thought we should talk alone. He nodded, following me into the kitchen where I'd set out a simple meal: spaghetti carbonara, crusty bread, and a bottle of the Barolo he'd always favored. "You cooked," he said, a flicker of surprise breaking through his guarded posture. "I still remember how," I replied, motioning to the table set for two. "Shall we?" For a while, we performed the ritual of dinner, serving, pouring wine, the soft scrape of forks against plates. The silence stretched taut between us, full of what neither of us yet said. He broke it first, his fork hitting the plate with a sharp sound. "I want to know why you did it." "Did what, specifically?" I asked mildly, sipping my wine. "Investigated my wife. Blocked me from the Laguna house. Changed your will. All of it, this calculated attack on my marriage." "Not your marriage, Evan," I corrected gently. "Her deception. There's a difference. You don't know her." "Not really. Those recordings and photos, there could be explanations you haven't considered." For the briefest moment, I felt a spark of hope. If he was looking for alternate explanations, then perhaps he wasn't fully lost to her spell. "What possible explanation justifies her calling you the perfect target? Or her planning to turn the house into a boutique hotel? Or her asking about the property before she even met you?" He flinched. "She says the recordings were taken out of context, edited to make her look bad. Then she's adding new lies to the old ones." I slid the small tablet toward him. "These are the full, unedited recordings. Listen. The context speaks for itself." He stared at the tablet, not touching it. Conflict was written all over his face. "She's my wife," he said at last. "She's a con artist who chose you for your access to this house and its value," I said evenly. "You never gave her a chance. You didn't even meet her before sending that file. That's not how a mother treats her son's wife." "You never gave me the chance to meet her," I reminded him. "You called after the wedding was done, and only to demand the keys." He pushed back from the table and stood. "This is pointless. You've already decided she's guilty." "That's not true," I said, remaining seated. "I'd be thrilled to be proven wrong. Bring me evidence that contradicts what I've found. Explain the recordings. Tell me why you hid your marriage, then immediately asked for the house." His eyes flashed. "Because I knew you'd judge her, the way you've judged every woman I've dated. Too ambitious. Too shallow. Too young. Too interested in my connections. No one is ever good enough." The words stung, because they carried a grain of truth. I had been cautious, perhaps too cautious, about his relationships. "I've never wanted anything but your happiness," I said softly. "But I won't watch someone use you to strip away what our family built." "Legacy, legacy, legacy," he spat. "That's all you care about: Grandpa's name, Dad's reputation, the image of the perfect family. What about what I want? What about my choices?" "Your choices affect more than you," I said, standing to face him. "They ripple out to everyone who loves you. This house isn't just yours to claim. Your father wanted it to remain in the family as a home, not a commodity. That's what the trust ensures. It protects it from people, including your wife, who've said they'd turn it into a hotel when I'm gone." He flinched again, a telltale sign that somewhere inside, he recognized the truth. "Listen to the recordings, Evan. Read the report. Then ask yourself if this marriage is built on love or on something far colder." "Don't psychoanalyze me," he snapped. "I'm not one of Grandpa's characters for you to pick apart." "No," I said. "You're my son. The boy I loved from his first breath. The man I've stood by through triumphs and mistakes. The one I'm still trying to protect, however imperfectly." Something flickered in his eyes, doubt, maybe even the beginnings of realization. Then his phone buzzed. The moment dissolved. "Scarlett," he began, then stopped himself. She's waiting for me. Of course she is, I murmured. She wants to hear what I've said, what she can still use. She's just concerned, he insisted, but it sounded less certain than before. Take the tablet. Review everything away from her voice in your ear. Decide based on facts, not emotion she's shaping to her advantage. He hesitated, then picked it up. This doesn't change anything. I still think what you did was cruel. I can live with that judgment if it means you'll see the truth. I touched his arm lightly. I didn't do this to hurt you, Evan. I did it because I love you too much to stay silent. For a heartbeat, it seemed like he might embrace me. Then another text pulled him back. I have to go, he said stiffly. She usually is, I replied when he mentioned Lila was waiting. At the door, he turned. Julius Hammond reached out to you? He did. $2 million and 6 months a year in the house. That's her price. His face told me he hadn't known the specifics, another small crack in her facade. The girls are glad to be here, I added. Zoe's already been in the water. Claire's halfway through The Great Gatsby on the deck. A brief smile tugged at his mouth. Tell them I'll see them soon. I will. After he left, I cleared the plates, his barely touched, and wrapped his portion, though I doubted it would be eaten. The house felt suddenly too large, even knowing Mia and the girls would return soon. I poured another glass of wine and stepped onto the terrace, letting the salt air and the sound of the waves steady me as night fell over the Pacific. What would you do, Samuel? I asked the empty space beside me. It was a habit I'd fallen into since he'd been gone, speaking into the quiet as though he might still answer. The waves kept their own counsel, rolling in their endless rhythm. A seabird called somewhere overhead. The breeze teased the palm fronds along the terrace. No voice came back to me, yet in the harmony of those familiar sounds, I found a sliver of calm. Evan had taken the tablet. At some point, he would hear every recording, read every transcript, see every piece of proof. Whether it would be enough to pierce Lila's carefully woven net around him, that was beyond my control now. I lifted my glass toward the fading horizon, a toast to hope and uncertainty sharing the same table. The next morning, I was at breakfast with Mia and the girls when the phone rang. Mrs. Drake, Thomas's voice was brisk. I thought you'd want to hear this immediately. Lila Ray's been making moves. I excused myself and stepped out to the terrace. What kind of moves? She met with 3 tabloid reporters yesterday. My sources say she's pitching a story that your father, Samuel Drake, fathered an illegitimate child in the 1960s and paid the mother to disappear. She claims to have documents. The lie was so outrageous I nearly laughed. Impossible. My father's life has been dissected by biographers for decades. There's no secret child. I agree it's almost certainly fabricated, Thomas said. But tabloids print for sensation, not accuracy. I considered the attack for what it was, an attempt to smear my father's name, not just mine. Can you get whatever proof she thinks she has? I'm already on it. But there's more. She's also been in contact with Horizon Developments, the beachfront resort people. She's telling them she'll have access to your property soon, and that she's authorized to discuss preliminary assessments. A cool shiver ran down my spine despite the morning sun. For what purpose? Unclear. But she's implying she can make decisions on your behalf. I thanked him and, as soon as we ended the call, rang Elaine Park. I need cease and desist letters sent to several tabloids and to Horizon Developments, I told her. And formally warn Horizon that anything Lila claims about authority over my property is fraudulent. I'll draft them today, Elaine said. But we should also prepare a public response in case she escalates. When I returned to the terrace, Zoe was out on the water trying to teach Claire how to surf. The sound of their laughter carried across the sand. That sound anchored me. Mia joined me with her coffee. More trouble? I told her. Her expression darkened. That's beyond manipulation, that's character assassination. She's desperate. She's losing control, I agreed. Have you heard from Evan? Not yet. But he has the evidence. Even if he listens to it just to try proving me wrong, eventually he'll realize he can't. And when he can't, Mia said with an edge in her voice, he'll have to choose. I didn't answer. I only watched a pelican dive cleanly into the sea and surface with its prize. And we'll be here for him, whichever way it goes. We passed the morning deliberately wrapped in ordinary things. I showed Claire how to make my mother's cinnamon rolls. Mia took Zoe into town for a new wetsuit. I wanted the girls' first days here to feel safe and steady, no matter what storms were gathering. Just after noon, my phone rang again, an unfamiliar number. Mrs. Drake, a young woman's voice said, hesitant but firm. This is Vanessa Diaz. I was Lila's friend. The name was instantly familiar. She was the voice in several of the recorded conversations about targeting Evan and the Laguna property. Yes, Miss Diaz, I said. I know who you are. I need to talk to you, about Lila, about what she's planning right now. 20 minutes later, Vanessa sat across from me in the living room. Early 20s, attractive, nervous fingers fussing with the rings on her hand. I'm not here because I suddenly care about you or your son, she said. Lila and I had a blow-up last night. She's gone too far. In what way? I asked, my tone neutral. She wants me to notarize forged letters, supposedly between your father and a woman he allegedly had a child with. She's using AI to mimic his handwriting and pulling details from biographies to make it convincing. My brows rose. And you refused? I've done questionable things, she admitted. But forgery tied directly to me? That's prison time. I'm not stupid. A wise boundary, I said. What else? She's meeting with developers tomorrow. Claims she has power of attorney over you, says you're in cognitive decline, and she's got a fake document to prove it. The sheer audacity of it nearly left me speechless. And Evan? Is he aware? She's keeping him in the dark. Telling him you're smearing her and she's meeting PR people and lawyers to protect them. But last night, after dinner with you, they argued. He asked about recordings and developers. She cried, said you faked everything to break them up. Did he buy it? I don't think so, not entirely. That's why she's rushing now. She can feel him slipping. I studied her. Why tell me this? Her gaze met mine directly for the first time. Because I've run smaller cons with her before, harmless stuff, mostly. But this? Forgery, manufactured scandals, selling off a family home? That's a different game. I'm not going down with her. Self-preservation, then. I nodded. Do you have proof? She pulled a manila envelope from her bag. The fake power of attorney, the forged letters, screenshots of her messages with tabloids and Horizon. I took it but didn't open it. You know you're implicating yourself. I do. That's why I want immunity if it goes to court. I'm cooperating before anything is finalized. I'll have Elaine draft something, I promised. In the meantime, cut all contact with her. Already moved out. She rose, clearly ready to leave. One more thing, she's meeting Evan for lunch at noon today. She's going to get him to sign something giving her authority to deal with the house. She's made up some emergency with one of his big clients so he'll be too busy to notice what he's signing. After she left, I called Thomas to verify her story and Elaine to start legal countermeasures. Then I called Evan. He answered reluctantly. Mom, I'm about to meet Lila at noon. I know. This will be quick. Have you reviewed the materials I gave you? A pause. Some of it. I've been swamped with a client emergency. How convenient, I said lightly. A small change in his breathing told me the barb had landed. What are you implying? Nothing. Just timing. I shifted my tone. Evan, whatever she asks you to sign today, about the house, about me, about anything, read it carefully. Better yet, have your own lawyer look at it. Silence. Then, you're having her followed. I'm protecting what's mine, I said gently. And you should do the same. Another pause. The recordings, they're real, aren't they? Unedited. Every second of them, I confirmed. And everything else in that file. I have to go, he said finally. Of course. Enjoy your lunch. When I hung up, Mia was in the doorway. What now? I told her about Vanessa's visit and the lunch meeting. Understanding flickered in her eyes. He's starting to see it, she said. The truth about her. Maybe, I said, unwilling to name it as victory yet. Or maybe he's just learning to doubt. Either way, I'd given Evan a warning. What he chose to do with it was his burden to carry. We were in the middle of preparing dinner when the security system chimed, an approaching vehicle. On the monitor, his Porsche shot up the drive and braked hard near the front steps. He got out alone, his movements taut and bristling with anger that reminded me sharply of Samuel in the rare moments he truly lost his temper. I met him at the door, bracing for the storm. She tried to trick me into signing power of attorney, he said, without greeting, his voice tight and measured, the kind of tone used when rage is being held on a short leash. It was buried in legal language about mutual representation during professional obligations. It would have given her control over anything involving the family property. Relief swept through me, though I kept my face neutral. I see. No, you don't. He stepped inside, pacing past me. That's not the worst part. When I pushed back, told her I wanted to read it fully, she completely unraveled. Accused me of not trusting her. Said you'd poison me against her. He stopped, jaw tight. Then her phone lit up. Horizon Developers. Confirming tomorrow's meeting about the Laguna house. I said nothing, letting him connect his own dots. Everything you told me, everything in those recordings, his voice wavered. It's true, isn't it? She never loved me. She just wanted, he gestured toward the walls, the history, the legacy they held. I'm sorry, Evan, I said softly. How didn't I see it? How was I so blind? Because she studied you. She learned your soft spots. She learned this family before she ever happened to meet you. And she's very good at her craft. He sank onto the stairs, head in his hands. You've been a man who wanted to be loved, I told him gently. There's no shame in that. For a moment, we sat in silence, the air heavy with what had broken. Then he straightened, his face shifting from devastation to determination. I need your help, Mom. To end this. To undo the damage. I rested my hand over his. Of course. That's what family is for. That night, Evan stayed in the guest room for the first time in almost 2 years. I heard him pacing long into the night, his footsteps a restless metronome above my bedroom. By morning, he appeared in the kitchen, rumpled but resolute. I've ignored all her calls and texts, he said, taking the coffee I poured him. 37 overnight. They're getting frantic. What do you want to do? I asked. End it completely. But first, I need to know exactly what I'm up against. He nodded toward the folder Vanessa had given me. May I? I slid it to him. It's not pleasant. For the next hour, he combed through the forged power of attorney, the AI-generated love letters from my father, the messages with tabloids and Horizon. With each page, his expression hardened. She was going to have you declared mentally unfit, he said flatly. Then take control through this fake document. Yes. And she was going to drag Grandpa's name through the mud with this nonsense about an illegitimate child. Yes. He closed the folder with deliberate care. I want her out of my life. Out of this family. Out of this house. Permanently. That can be arranged, I said. Elaine has the divorce papers ready, fraud and misrepresentation. They can be filed today. Do it. He raked a hand through his hair. And the rest? The tabloids, the developers? Already handled. Cease and desist letters are sent. Horizon knows she has no authority. Elaine is preparing a formal complaint for the district attorney. He exhaled, a flicker of reluctant admiration in his eyes. You've been 3 steps ahead this whole time. I've had to be, I said quietly. When you shut family out of major decisions, we're left reacting instead of being included. He winced at that truth. I know. I should have, he stopped, shaking his head. There are a lot of things I should have done differently. Before I could respond, the system alerted us again, a taxi at the gate. The camera feed showed Lila climbing out, hair mussed, expression sharp with agitation. She's here, Evan said, his shoulders squaring. Do you want me? No. This is mine to handle. I nodded and quietly activated the house's recording system, a feature I'd had since an overzealous photographer trespassed years ago. Evan met her at the front steps before she could ring. I stayed in the kitchen, out of sight but within earshot. Evan, thank God, she began, her voice thick with faux relief. I've been worried sick. Why aren't you answering? What are you doing here? His voice was cool, controlled. If this is about that document yesterday, it was just standard legal. Stop. The word cracked through the air. I've seen it all. The recordings. The forged documents. Your meetings with Horizon to turn this place into a hotel. A pause, then the shift in her voice, from sugar to steel. Your mother staged all that to poison you against me, and you're falling for it? Vanessa gave me everything, he said. Including your texts about how to separate the son from the Drake fortune. Another pause. Then, her mask dropped entirely. Fine. So what? You think you're special? You were an easy mark, desperate, blind, pathetic. I felt the sting for him, but stayed back. You're right, he said evenly. I was an easy mark. That's on me. But now I see it. And now it ends. You think you can just run back to mommy and divorce me? I'm your wife. I have rights. You have nothing. Fraud and misrepresentation void the rest. And the prenup you didn't want? It works against you now. The DA will love the forgery evidence. Her voice cracked. I'll destroy you. And your mother. I'll ruin your precious family name. With what? Your fake scandal about my grandfather? Go ahead. Every tabloid has been warned. Every developer knows you're lying. That old woman. Careful, Evan cut in, his voice dangerous. That's my mother you're about to insult. The woman you thought wouldn't fight back, and who turned out to be more than either of us expected. Silence. Then, this isn't over. You've made an enemy you can't afford. No, he said. I've learned what actually matters. And it isn't you. You'll regret this. The only thing I regret, he said, opening the door, is not listening sooner. Goodbye, Lila. Divorce papers are on their way. Don't come back. The door shut. The taxi drove away. For a long moment, the house was quiet. Then Evan came into the kitchen. His face held pain, yes, but also something else I hadn't seen in years. A quiet dignity that reminded me of his father. Well, he said. That's done. I opened my arms, and he stepped into them without hesitation. He shuddered once, then pulled back. I'm sorry, Mom. For all of it, not trusting you, shutting you out, demanding the house. I know, I said softly. And I forgive you. His eyes searched mine. Just like that? Forgiveness doesn't erase consequences, I said. And it doesn't rebuild trust overnight. But it means I won't carry this against you forever. He nodded slowly. The trust, the one giving the house to Mia and Claire eventually. That stays? Yes. The house remains in the family, but never as a commodity. That's what your father wanted. That's what I promised. Instead of protest, he only nodded again. I understand. Finally. From the deck, laughter floated in. Mia and the girls returning from their morning walk, unaware of the battle just fought and won inside these walls. Life had a way of carrying on, imperfect, unpredictable, and still beautiful. Shall we join them? I asked, nodding toward the sound of laughter drifting in from the terrace. Evan smiled, a real smile this time, the kind I hadn't seen in years, warm and unguarded, like the boy he used to be. I'd like that very much. We stepped into the golden California sunlight, and I felt the weight I'd been carrying shift. Not gone, but lighter. The house stood. The legacy was safe. And maybe, just maybe, my son was beginning to see what truly mattered. Margaret wasted no time. That afternoon, she filed for divorce on Evan's behalf, fraud and misrepresentation. By evening, Scarlett was served at the luxury hotel she'd fled to after the confrontation. Her response came in predictable waves. First, a stream of venomous texts to Evan, then a formal statement from Julius Hammond declaring their intent to contest the divorce and seek substantial compensation for emotional distress and reputational harm. Empty threats, Margaret said on our evening conference call. The fraud evidence is overwhelming, recordings, forged documents. No judge will award her a cent. Beside me, Evan's face was grim. He looked years older than he had 2 days ago. And the criminal side? I asked. The DA has the complaint. With Vanessa Diaz's cooperation, they'll almost certainly pursue charges, Margaret said. But given she has no prior record, they may offer probation instead of jail time. When the call ended, Evan stayed silent for a long moment, staring at the speakerphone. I can't believe I fell for all of it, he said finally. She knew exactly where to aim, I reminded him gently. Professional manipulators always do. He gave a humorless laugh. And I married her without even introducing her to my family. What was I thinking? You weren't thinking, I said softly. You were feeling. Responding to the admiration she fed you. That's her trade. His gaze flicked to mine. You think I need a therapist, don't you? I think it might help to understand why this pattern keeps repeating. To my surprise, he didn't argue. You're right. Dad would have told me the same thing, wouldn't he? Probably with more literary quotes and less diplomacy, I said, smiling faintly. He returned it. Yeah. That sounds about right. Before I could answer, Mia appeared in the doorway, serious beyond her years. Grandma, there's someone on the news talking about us. About great-grandpa. We followed her to the living room, where Arya and Zoe sat tense in front of the television. On screen, Scarlett stood at a podium, Julius Hammond at her side, delivering a flawless performance of wounded dignity. While I seek justice through the courts, she was saying, I feel compelled to share certain truths about the Bradford family. Evan stiffened beside me. She's actually doing it. She's going public with the fake letters. I rested a hand on his arm. Scarlett launched into her tale, my father's alleged secret child and hidden correspondence, waving forged letters like trophies. That's all fake, Evan said to Arya and the girls. AI generated, modeled after Grandpa Felix's handwriting. How do we stop this? Arya asked, her voice taut. Before I could answer, my phone rang. I assume you're watching? Theo's voice came brisk and direct. We've traced her so-called source. Patricia Lawson. 62. Actress. Used to be in Scarlett's acting workshop. She's playing the part of Felix's daughter. And her real story? I asked. Financially struggling. Perfect candidate for Scarlett's scheme. Here's the twist, Lawson's mother really did work at Paramount in the late 50s. Just enough truth to bait the tabloids. I hung up and faced my family. Scarlett's hired an actress to pretend to be my father's child. Convenient, but irrelevant. The truth is on our side. It's still disgusting, Evan muttered. Yes. But it's also beatable. Within hours, our counterattack was underway. USC's archives issued a statement. Felix Hartman's personal papers, letters, and journals, fully catalogued, showed no trace of secret children or hush payments. The Academy Museum announced a special exhibition of my father's work and personal life, complete with never-before-seen home movies and family correspondence. Margaret lined up 3 of my father's biographers for television interviews. They dismantled Scarlett's claims point by point, citing primary sources and documented timelines. By nightfall, the tide had turned. Gossip blogs that had run with Scarlett's story were backpedaling, questioning her motives. The next blow came from within. Patricia Lawson herself gave an interview admitting she'd been paid to pose as Felix's daughter and supplied with forged letters. Scarlett told me it was just a negotiation tactic, Lawson said. I didn't realize how far it would go. The following morning, the DA announced an active investigation into Scarlett Moore for fraud, forgery, and witness tampering. By lunchtime, Julius Hammond had dropped her as a client. We were on the terrace when Evan's phone buzzed. He frowned. It's her. She says she'll sign the divorce without contest if I call off the legal dogs. That's not even in your control, Arya pointed out. And meeting her gives her another stage, I added. Don't. Evan's mouth curved in something that wasn't quite a smile. Agreed. He typed a short reply and set the phone down. I told her to go through the attorneys. Any further contact will go straight into the restraining order. Good, Arya said. He looked out toward the water. A week ago, I thought I was in love with her. Now I can barely remember why. It's like waking from a dream, vivid, but meaningless. Some dreams fade quickly in the daylight, I said. Especially the ones built on illusion. Below us, Mia and Zoe combed the sand for shells, their voices rising on the breeze. I've been thinking about what you said, Evan murmured. About getting help. I found a therapist. Starts next week. Apparently there's a waiting list for industry types with narcissistic tendencies and boundary issues. He gave a wry smile. And for the first time in far too long, I allowed myself to believe he might actually mean it. That gentle, self-deprecating humor, so much like his father's, caught me off guard and brought a sting of tears to my eyes. I'm proud of you, Evan. He reached across the table, his hand warm over mine. Thanks, Mom. For seeing what I couldn't. For fighting for what mattered when I didn't even realize it was slipping away. We lingered there, the 3 of us, just lunch at the old table, in the old house, the one that had held so many chapters of our lives. The storm had passed, and instead of wreckage, I saw stronger beams in its wake. To new beginnings, Arya said, lifting her glass. And to old wisdom, Evan added, following suit. I raised mine, my heart full. To family, the real thing. 6 months can change everything, or almost nothing. For us, the truth was somewhere in between. Autumn arrived in a blaze of gold, soft light stretching over the Malibu coast. I sat on the terrace reviewing the final divorce decree. It was official, Evan's marriage to Scarlett was over. Once she realized there was no escaping the evidence, she'd stopped fighting. Her criminal charges had ended in a plea deal, probation, community service, and a restraining order keeping her away from us for good. A light sentence, perhaps, but it gave us what we needed most: distance. The months in between had brought slow, uneven healing. Evan stuck with therapy, surprising even himself. He unpacked the patterns and insecurities that had left him open to someone like her. He traded his flashy Hollywood home for a modest place in Venice Beach. Less to prove, he'd said when I visited. Less to hide behind. Arya and the girls returned north. Mia was already applying to colleges, USC among them, drawn by the same archives that held her great-grandfather's papers. Zoe had thrown herself into competitive surfing, her natural skill sharpened by endless summer mornings on our private stretch of sand. As for me, I'd spent those months thinking about what I was truly preserving. Not just the house, but the story it told. The trust documents still willed it to my granddaughters, but I'd added something new, a written family history, honest about both the glitter and the grit, so the lessons we'd learned wouldn't be lost. Today wasn't about crisis. It was about celebration, my 70th birthday. I felt calm stepping into it, steadier than I had in years. Evan arrived first, carrying an extravagant bouquet of hydrangeas in a small, carefully wrapped box. "Happy birthday, Mom." He pulled me into a warm hug, the easy kind we'd had before ambition and pride had pulled us apart. "You look beautiful," he teased. "Flattery," I said, smiling, "but I'll take it." He slipped easily into the kitchen, helping Maria arrange appetizers. That, more than anything, marked the change. He was present, grounded, part of the rhythm instead of an occasional guest. "Before anyone else gets here," he said, setting down the knife he'd been using to slice cheese, "I want to give you this." The package was small, the wrapping simple. Inside was a leather-bound journal embossed with my initials. "Open it," he urged. The first page was inscribed in his handwriting. "For my mother, who taught me that legacy isn't measured in property or possessions, but in wisdom passed from one generation to the next. This is my contribution to our story, imperfect, honest, and given with love." Inside were his words, reflections on growing up as Felix Hartman's grandson, Richard's son, my complicated boy. Memories of this house, of the beach, of our family in all its flawed glory. Pages that admitted mistakes, celebrated moments of grace, and wrestled with the values that had shaped him even when he tried to resist them. "Evan," I managed, my voice thick. "This is extraordinary." "My therapist suggested it at first," he said. "But it turned into something else, a way to connect with what I almost lost." I pulled him into my arms. This was the man his father and I had always hoped he'd become. "There's more," he said, stepping back. "I'm making a documentary about Grandpa Felix. Not the Hollywood icon, the man behind the typewriter. The father. The mentor. I've been interviewing people who knew him, digitizing home movies. I want to show the truth." "He would have loved that," I said, deeply moved. "I thought we could premiere it here," he suggested. "On the terrace, where he used to tell us stories." "Perfect," I said. "Absolutely perfect." Arya and the girls arrived soon after, bringing gifts and the joyful chaos that comes when generations pile into one space. We dined outside, the Pacific deepening to blue as we ate. Mia discussed film preservation with Evan, her curiosity sharp and focused. Zoe told stories of her last surfing competition, her confidence lighting her up like her grandfather once had in his youth. Arya watched them both, pride soft in her eyes. Evan was different, not the center of the room, but part of it. Listening. Laughing. Present. When the sun began to sink, I rose. "To 70 years, I said. "Most of them good. Some challenging. All of them part of a story still being written." "To Grandma Rose," Mia said. "To this house," Arya added. "To family," Evan finished, meeting my gaze. We touched glasses as the horizon burned pink and gold. In that moment, I felt my father's presence, my husband's warmth, the unbroken thread of love that tied us all here. Later, as lanterns glowed, Evan set up a projector. On the screen, my father's grainy home movies flickered to life, me as a young woman chasing a toddler Evan along the sand, Richard debating with my father, hands flying, my mother laughing over flowers in the kitchen. I forgot these even existed, I whispered. They were in USC's archive, Evan said. Digitized for the first time. We watched, silent, the past breathing in light and shadow. This house, I said at last, isn't just walls. It's our family's soul. Evan reached for my hand, and I knew he understood now. Truly understood. The home movies faded to black, but we stayed there, listening to the tide. The inheritance we had protected wasn't measured in trust documents or property value, it was here, in the laughter, the love, the lessons passed forward. Some lessons are costly. But the ones worth keeping aren't easily lost, not if we have the courage to guard them. That, I thought, is what legacy really means.